Harry really forced out of the royal family? Or did he choose to leave and is now living to regret it? Yes, oh yes, this is what Prince Harry told the court recently, is that he was forced out of the royal family and that he never ever wanted to give up his job as a working royal. And now, while I think that is correct in Harry's mind, what I think he's not taking into account, or what after a long period of time he's failed to recognize, is that truly Meghan Markle forced Harry to leave the royal family because she didn't like it. Yes, they didn't go along with all of Meghan Markle's grand old plans, and so she told Harry, you know what, honey, we need to leave because they're not being nice to me. And it'll get all better if we go to California and we pursue my Hollywood dream. And guess what? That has been an absolute epic disaster of a train wreck for them. And I think in this statement to the court, Harry is sort of backtracking and trying to rewrite history to help himself, and yet also at the same time placate his wife, because I think there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes with them. I think we have a lot of tension, a lot of questions over where they should be, and I think Harry wants to go home, but Meghan Markle doesn't. And I think she's using this security issue as a way to keep Harry and their children in California and not visit the royals, because in Meghan Markle's mind, guys, she is the most critical member of the royal family and everyone is out together. And that is not remotely the case at all. In fact, I think Harry and Meghan invite a lot of pressure on themselves because they are generally very obnoxious. And so we are going to explore a bit of this today because I think it's very important to understand what the security issues are within the royal family, which are very real, and how none of that applies to Harry and Meghan pretty much. And in fact, in some cases, they have made themselves a bigger target. So why should the British public pay for an exorbitant security apparatus for two people who are making themselves greater targets by just being obnoxious? I don't think anybody should have to pay for that. And so we will go into those details today and share a little bit about that. But if you guys haven't been to Royal News Network, my name is Brittany and you guys should subscribe. We provide compelling royal commentary here looking at all the latest royal news. In addition, I also have a sponsorship with Lucia diamond jewelry. I'm wearing today my very pretty diamond butterfly necklace. I'm so excited about this. It's been so fun to have it. I'm also wearing a new X ring I got. And so if you guys are interested in any of this, especially for the upcoming holiday season, there are some amazing deals available. And if you use my code ROYAL20, you save 20% on those pieces. And oh, and I also got a tennis bracelet. Isn't that pretty? I just leave that on all the time because I just think it's absolutely gorgeous. And what an amazing thing to have on all the time. Just like a statement, constant piece of jewelry. I'm loving it. It's perfect. But back to Prince Harry in court. Now, he wasn't actually in court because I think he is smart enough to realize it's probably incredibly stupid to go to the UK now with all the fallout from Endgame, although the timing of this court case is also very interesting. It's like you could tell the court was like, Neener, 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 you have to come here after this disastrous book where everybody kind of hates you even more now. And so Harry is complaining, though, that he needs security because Revic, which is an organization that denotes who is a internationally protected person. So these people are like prime ministers, people up very high in the line of government or defense, or in this case, in the UK, royals, because King Charles is their head of state. So now in the United States, for example, our head of state and the leader of our government is one single person, and that is whoever the president of the United States is, in this case, Joe Biden. And every previous president also has a Secret Service detail, and that is because they were all heads of state. They were making dynastic, huge, influential policy decisions that have a large-ranging impact on the government and the world. And so all those people get protection, and usually their extended family do as well. And we understand that to a certain extent here in America. I don't like everybody who has security protection, but I understand why they do. Because being a president of the United States, you have your hand, your finger basically on the nuclear button. And so that makes you a bit of a target. Now in the UK, it's different. The head of the government is whoever the prime minister is. And then the head of state is King Charles, previously Queen Elizabeth II. And what the head of state does is that they are the face of the government. So they don't make any policy decisions, and yet they are the face of it. So if the country goes to war, makes huge policy changes, maybe gets rid of the National Health Service. Yes, the royals had no part in that whatsoever, but essentially they become the face of it to a certain extent. And the head of state goes to other countries on diplomatic visits to help shore up relations on behalf of the government. And yes, the prime minister does similar things, but it all comes together in this way. And the head of state, obviously you are a target because yes, you are not making policy decisions, but you are the head of the government. You are the face of the government. Charles's face is on currency. It's on stamps. It'll be on so many different things because it is his government. And one day it'll be Prince William's government because he will be head of state. And after that, it'll be Prince George's government. Or, I mean, it should be King William and then King George. If they decide to keep their names or change them to something different, that is always a decision they can make later in life. So they are important in that way. And that's why they need security protection because they are very important figures and they represent the future of the government. Prince George, even though he's only 10, he's going to be the future head of state. And that's not something he can necessarily get out of. Obviously, we could have a King Edward situation, but hopefully I don't think we will. But he represents that and he will continue on the legacy that has been going on for almost 1,000 years. So Prince George's role, even though he's a child, is very important. And the children of Prince William, in this case Charlotte and Louis, especially as they are young, they are the children of the future king. They are the grandchildren of the current king. And because of that high ranking in the line of succession, they will be greater targets until obviously George has children, and then their importance will somewhat lessen over time. That's just how royalty works. So when it comes to being king, for example, obviously the king is important and his children, but as his firstborn or her firstborn has children, those other children just get less important over time. And so your role diminishes and your need for security diminishes because there are several people ahead of you in the line of succession. And in Harry's case, in the case of Archie and Lilibet, their importance will diminish continually over time because they will get lower down the line of succession as Prince George has children, Princess Charlotte, Prince Louis. And let's say if each of them had 3 children, I don't even know if Harry at that point would be in the top 10. And that's just how royalty works. For great examples, Harry can look at his Uncle Andrew, his Uncle Edward, and of course, his aunt, Princess Anne, because Princess Anne went from second in line to the throne to probably, I don't know what her place is now, 13th, 14th, something like that. Because again, everybody goes further down the line of succession as time goes on unless you are in that direct line. And this wasn't as certain, let's say, in the Middle Ages because there was a lot of upheaval, a lot of change, and people were moving about more and people died earlier from diseases they didn't know how to cure or different things. And so things kind of bopped around. Because you have, in the case of King Henry, you had 3 different children born by 3 different women. So you had King Edward first, who was a child, and because he was the only son, he got to go first. And then next after he died, you had Queen Mary, and she ended up not having any children and had some health issues, so she ended up dying. And then it became Queen Elizabeth. And so those sort of issues do happen, but in this modern time, it's pretty much direct line only, and everybody else, after a period of time, your importance in the line sort of starts to diminish, and most of them go on to do other things or are told basically once they become adults, hey, you probably need to find another job. This has happened in Denmark, so we know that when it comes to the Crown Prince of Denmark, it will only be his firstborn son, Prince Christian, who gets a salary from the government. His other 3 children will have to find their own jobs and own ways in life. Yes, they will probably still have patronages and stuff like that, but they won't be working royals and supported in the same way their brother is. And that makes sense because Denmark is small. In Sweden, the situation is a smidge different. The king actually came to the throne quite young in his 20s, and so all 3 of his children were working royals for a period of time until they started getting married and having children. And now his son is still, who is his middle child, is still working pretty frequently. But his youngest daughter, Madeline, went to live in Florida. And so she comes back and does engagements from time to time, but she's not an essential member of the royal family the way she was. And what I think Harry needs to recognize here is that, like Omid Scobie said, Omid Scobie, their mouthpiece, the guy who's been closest to them, who wrote Finding Freedom, who has made it his life's journey to share their story. Guess what? They are, as he said, constitutionally irrelevant. And because of that, Prince Harry does not need the same security protection that his father and his brother get and his nephews and niece get. That's just the bare bones truth of the matter. Harry is constitutionally irrelevant. Even his Uncle Edward, Uncle Andrew, and Princess Anne, none of them give 24-hour security. They get security when they go on engagements. And they get security basically because they live within royal compounds. So Bagshot House, or home or manor or whatever it is. And then you also have the Royal Lodge. Both of those places are within the grounds of Windsor, so they are protected because of that. And Anne lives in a different place, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But they get security protection there. And if there is a particular threat, then yes, they will probably get additional security if Harry and Meghan come to the UK and the police know a specific threat, they will make arrangements for that. Or if Harry and Meghan go to, let's say, Trooping the Color, they will get security as part of that overall apparatus because it is a high profile event. Other than that though, Harry and Meghan won't get it. And Harry is mad about that because he doesn't think it's fair that he left the royal family and that somehow they're not offering him 24/7 security when he comes back to the UK, or I think sometimes too, he still wants it back in the States because I think him and Meghan are paying an exorbitant amount for security that they don't really need to because honestly, nobody cares except for the fact that they've made themselves kind of obnoxious. So let's go into what Harry said in court in a statement because I think it's very important to remind ourselves the truth here because Harry and Meghan like to rewrite the truth when it serves them and they have a very loose association with it, much like Omid Scobie. So here is what he said. It is with great sadness to both of us that my wife and I felt forced to step back from this role and leave the country in 2020. Now, if you remember, that's not true. First sentence of his and Meghan's statement regarding Megxit. After many months of reflection and internal discussions, we have chosen to make a transition this year and starting to carve out a progressive new role within this institution. We intend to step back as senior members of the royal family and to work to become financially independent while continuing to fully support Her Majesty the Queen. Now, let's go into a bit of tough love, Harry. Okay, so you left. You chose to leave. You told us you chose to leave because you wanted to be financially independent and you wanted to step back as a senior royal, which means you're no longer important and you no longer get 24-hour security. And then you're complaining that they took away your security and that they are treating you like the minor royal that you now are. I think you need a bit of a reality check here, Harry. You decided to leave. There were avenues for you to stay because we do know that Harry and Meghan had reached out and wanting to carve this new role, and the discussions were ongoing. But there was no final decision when they decided to initiate Megxit. They were all of a sudden like, yes, we're going to do Megxit. And they dropped this bomb on the royal family, and the royals are sitting there going, what do we do now? What do we do? I don't know what to do. What do we do? And Harry and Meghan created essentially a manifesto on their website explaining what they wanted the royals to do. And they wanted the royals to basically allow them to travel the world on their dime, going to the Commonwealth countries and still keeping those roles, and also show up whenever they felt like it to do various royal engagements. And obviously the royal family was like, no, that's not going to work for us, because if you are traveling the world on the government's dime and yet you're also trying to be financially independent, how do we know that you're not going to, let's say, Australia and making backdoor deals for yourself when you should be representing the royals? It was a conflict of interest nobody could gamble on because we already had trouble with that with Prince Andrew. Air Miles Andy, he would go to different places. A lot of people said he picked up bags of cash. And so this idea that they were going to let Harry and Meghan do the same, it's like, no, we've already tried this and it didn't work. And I think the royals knew as well what Meghan Markle's real intentions were. They knew she didn't care about the royals. She didn't care about following protocol or anything like that. She wanted Hollywood. She wanted a Hollywood. And so they're like, okay, we can't do this. And so Harry wasn't forced out. He chose to leave. And then there was a year period of time where he could have come back if he wanted to. The Queen set that up for him. Because again, I think all the royals are knowing Harry's probably going to fail pretty dismally here because he has no talent in this industry and his wife really doesn't either. So we don't know quite what they're doing. So we'll give them a route back if they need it, but we're just going to let them do their own thing. Well, they've done their own thing and it hasn't gone well. So now all of a sudden he was forced to leave. And the idea in his head, which you get in further statements, is that the risk to him and Meghan Markle and their kids is much higher than the rest of the royals. They're so much more important than the rest of the royals. The danger is so extreme that they can't even come to the UK without risking something. But is that true? And is that really the reason why they can't visit? I don't think it is. So let's get further into it. The UK is my home. The UK is central to the heritage of my children and a place I want them to feel at home as much as where they live at the moment in the United States. That cannot happen if there's no possibility to keep them safe when they are on UK soil. I can't put my wife in danger like that, and given my experiences in life, I'm reluctant to necessarily put myself in harm's way too. That statement doesn't make any sense because he's saying, I want to take my kids and I want my kids to be safe, but then he's also saying, well, the danger is too high for my wife, so we can't go. That doesn't work. So who's more danger, your kids or your wife? Because I think the truth is, Meghan Markle doesn't want to go back to the UK at all. And so she tells Harry, well, it's too dangerous for me. So you have to fix that so we can go. I think Harry would spend much more time in the UK if he could, especially with his kids. But his wife doesn't want to. So what does he do? They concoct together this ridiculous legal case against the government for not allowing them to have the same level of royal protection as the king and the other future king, because they are in more danger than anybody else. They are in epically more danger than anybody else in the world, Harry and Meghan. But I really think the truth is that Meghan Markle doesn't want to go. I think she hated the UK. I think she doesn't want to curtsy to anybody. I think she hated all the protocols. She hated the weather. She hated everything about his country. And so she tells him, well, I won't go unless you fix the security issue because you know I'm in such danger. I'm like Diana. Everybody's after me. Everybody wants a piece of me. So you have to fix it. And so he's going about this court case. But at the end of the day, the government cannot fund them the way they want to. They've left. They even said in their statement, we want to go from senior royals to minor royals. They didn't put in minor royals, but that's essentially, they took themselves off the board as seniors and made themselves minor royals. If the other minor royals don't get 24-hour security, why should they get it? Why should they? And if there is an actual threat, the government will intervene. There will be a security apparatus offered to them because they said we have credible threats against you. But I don't think the credible threats exist. I think the credible threat is booing and maybe having some eggs thrown at them. I think that's the actual credible threat, not this grand theory Harry has. And if, let's say, Harry talking about his Taliban count in terms of who he might have been in conflict with in the country, he didn't have to put that in his book. He didn't have to tell us how many people he allegedly killed in his book, but he did. And so to him now, his security risk is higher because of that. But no, we told you to put that in your book. You didn't need to put that in your book. So why should we pay for your level of stupid? I've asked that time and time again. Why should we pay for their stupidity? Nobody should have to pay for that, especially my taxpayer dollars, because if they get their internationally protected person status back, my taxpayer dollars will have to help augment their security. And if you're in the United States, your taxpayer dollars as well. And that just can't stand. And I think the other thing too is Meghan wants to feel as important as Catherine and Camilla, because we have this video. This lovely video. After the whole debacle with Endgame, Meghan Markle's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to look humble, put on my sweats, and maybe not put on the bracelet, the tennis bracelet that King Charles gave me for my wedding, and I'm going to do a paparazzi stroll. But she wasn't alone. She had a security guy there who went around and opened the stinking door for her. And I'm like, and she's like, looks like she's in a residential neighborhood or something like that. And it looks like she's going to the gym. Why in the world does she need a security guy to escort her to the gym? Nobody would know she was there, except for the fact that she called Backgrid and told them to pap her there. That's the only reason they were there, is because she told them to be there. But the hubris of thinking that you need security to go to the gym is absolutely insane, because I honestly think their security risk is probably greater in California than it is in the UK in a lot of ways. 1,000% crime in California. I mean, it's a very real concern. You see all the videos of people looting in stores and stuff like that. And so I think the risk actually in California is greater than it is in the UK. And obviously we have our gun laws are very different. And so there is that risk as well. So how in the world is Harry that concerned about going to the UK when obviously if anybody could figure out, perhaps his security risk is greater here. The delusions in their mind about their importance is just really quite stunning to behold. Because the other truth is, and this is a hard truth I think for Harry, is that because he is constitutionally irrelevant, no one cares. cares? If he and Meghan weren't making such a spectacle of themselves, drawing all the ire of the British public, nobody would care at all. They could lead essentially normal lives. And yes, the paparazzi would chase them from time to time, which Harry complains about, I think, in a statement as well. Or one of his barristers say the paparazzi chases him. Well, that's the life you chose. You're a celebrity now. You're a minor royal, like your cousins. That's what you get. That's what you get. Nobody in the world said that you were not allowed to be chased by the paparazzi anymore. You chose to leave. You chose to do your own thing, and this is a result of that. And yes, you may be chased around from time to time. Well, join the club, because a lot of other British celebrities get it too. And guess what? You're just going to be another one of those people. That's right. And he also brings up his mother again, Diana. Diana died in a drunk driving accident in Paris with a guy who was going too fast and over the legal limit, and she wasn't wearing a seatbelt. So how does that compare to him and his family being in the UK, which is not Paris? UK, not Paris. They even drive on different sides of the road. So, and if his security people are doing fine, if they are sober and everything, why is it an issue? And the paparazzi culture, you have to remember, is very, very different at this point. The paparazzi culture in the late 90s, earlier 2000s was huge. But with the advent of social media, yes, we still get paparazzi pictures, but most of the time anymore, most stars actually coordinate with the paparazzi. Nobody in their right mind, no paparazzo, would drive 2 hours to Montecito just on the happenstance they may, very remote chance, be able to catch Meghan Markle doing something. Because they don't know when she's going to leave the house. She's in a gated neighborhood. Like, how are they going to track her necessarily? And so they could go up there, waste 2 hours driving up there, waste 2 hours driving back. They could waste gas money, and gas is very expensive in California. I think I saw one gas station when I was there in October where gas was like $7. And like the bare minimum was like $5, much more expensive where I'm at. So why would the paparazzi waste all that gas on the off chance of seeing nothing? No paparazzi goes to Montecito unless they've been told a celebrity is in X spot. Meghan Markle calls them every single time. She coordinates these paparazzi strolls very, very specifically. And it, I think, draws a lot of negative attention to her. So again, why should the rest of the world, the UK government, pay for the negative attention she's bringing on herself? But I think, again, it's a way to control Harry and prevent Harry from connecting with his family. She tells him it's too dangerous for her. She feels threatened. And so he doesn't go. They don't bring the kids because she's too threatened to go to the UK. And because of that, their children are missing out on spending time with their cousins, their extended family, because Meghan Markle feels like she can't control Harry unless he's within her environment anymore. And so they have to concoct this crazy narrative around themselves. And all I think at the end of the day it's hurting is Harry and the children. And so Harry May feels like he didn't have a choice to leave the UK because Meghan felt so in danger that they had to scamper off as soon as they could. But at the end of the day, that was his choice. He could have come back. They could have come back. But Meghan Markle has wanted Hollywood this entire time. She saw royalty as a stepping stone to Hollywood greatness. And so once Meghan Markle got her hooks in him, and then the negative media attention started, and because she apparently had bullied staff and stuff like that, this grew and grew. She was like, okay, Harry, this is too hard for me, and I don't want to stay here. Let's move. And so he's like, okay, we'll move. And they moved to Canada briefly, and then moved to California, and then made all these mega deals with Hollywood. But of course, they only did that because they were desperate for money. Well, then don't initiate it in the first place. Negotiate a deal and then move to California. Again, all this stuff is a Harry and Meghan created problem. It's nobody else's problem but the one they created for themselves. So why should anybody have to pay for that? If you've made your own stupid mistakes, you need to live with them. You need to figure out how to deal with that. And Harry, if you are worried about the cost of security for you and Meghan Markle, then you guys need to have a bit of a reality check. And yes, when you go to events, security, of course, no problem at all. I don't think anybody has an issue with that. But does Meghan Markle, does your wife really need security to go to the gym in a residential neighborhood in Montecito where probably absolutely nobody cares who she is? There was even a person that walked right by her and had no clue who she was. It's like, of course, because she's in shade, she has a ball cap, and nobody cares. I do always think, one last moment, I do always think it's funny when celebrities like dress more slovenly and then put a hat on thinking that helps. I'm like, I feel like you're drawing more attention to yourself by looking a bit like a slob than you are, you know, eliminating attention from yourself. Just dress like a normal person, and that's probably, most people probably wouldn't recognize you. But Meghan Markle wants to be recognized. She wants this attention on her. And Harry doesn't know how to deal with it because the attention in his mind connects with the death of his mother. And you got to think too, that's pretty manipulative and pretty awful to do as a partner of somebody who's lost their mother, to basically recreate the situation that his mother was in artificially. I mean, even when it comes to their supposed paparazzi chase in New York City, that was a whole concocted narrative. Basically, everybody called BS on that story. It made no sense. And that's what I think this case is as well. It doesn't make any sense. And I think Harry is just complaining that his decisions have consequences and he doesn't know quite how to deal with that. So guys, let me know what you think of this video. Let me know what you think of Harry's ridiculous security concerns. I'd love to have your thoughts. Thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.